JWK S1E4 Stanford Doctor Introduction.
Thank you, Pranjal and Kevin, for coming on Journeys with Kai. As you can see, this is our first outdoor podcast, also first co-located podcast, and we're in Stanford's campus in the Oval. So yeah, we can just go ahead and dive right into it. So we're at Stanford's campus because both of you guys are here for medical reasons. So Pranjal, you're here for residency, right?
Yeah, so I'm a resident physician in emergency medicine, so it's my first year here. So it's my intern year. The first year residency is called your intern year, so I'm here for an intern year. I went to Johns Hopkins for medical school and was there from 2016 to 2020, so just graduated. And before that, I was at Vanderbilt, graduated in 2016. And originally from California, I was born in Oakland, but I moved to Alabama when I was 1. And then spent time in Alabama for like 17, 18 years. That's really where I kind of and then just went straight from there to nursery.
Awesome. Kevin, you're here for medical school?
Yeah, I'm a third-year medical student here at Stanford. I'm taking 5 years to graduate, which is a pretty common path for a lot of Stanford medical students. We get up to different things during our medical school time, so I've been interested in innovation and medical device research. So I've worked in research realms to develop new devices, as well as try and translate those into the clinic through entrepreneurship and innovation routes. Before my experience at Stanford, I was at Vanderbilt University, and I was there for 4 years studying bioengineering. And I grew up in Houston, Texas, and spent my formative years there, and then came out to Nashville, where I met several of these guys. So, enjoying the Bay Area life, though. Been living in Palo Alto now for a couple of years, and it's a cool ecosystem and place to be now.
Yeah, especially with your background in sort of research and entrepreneurship, I'd say it's definitely a pretty good fit for you guys.
Exactly, and I think the whole Silicon Valley Stanford ecosystem kind of revolves around this site, Stanford and the medical center itself. So it's a cool place to learn about the history as well as be a part of it and try to bring new things into the medical world.
And Pranjal, your focus is a little different than Kevin's, probably, right? In medicine, at least.
It is, yeah. So my path to medicine has been a little bit sort of not really out of the ordinary, but not very sort of linear.
Sure.
When I was a kid, I wanted to be an astronaut, and then that transitioned to me wanting to be an engineer.
Okay.
And I've always loved math and science, and so I wanted to do engineering as a kid. Wasn't really sure what type, but I was thinking about maybe aerospace engineering. But as it came sort of closer time to pick a major in college, I ended up going for chemical engineering, largely because my dad's a chemical engineer and my mom's a chemist.
Oh, damn.
There's a lot of chemical engineers in my family. My brother's actually a chemical engineer too.
What?
He's younger than me, but we all ended up doing chemical engineering. So I chose chemical engineering, and then really sort of wasn't sure whether I was going to apply to medical school. I had actually, simultaneously applied to some BSMD programs. You're probably familiar with BSMD programs. They're basically combined programs where out of high school you can get a guaranteed acceptance into an MD program. And so I applied to a few of those and was accepted to one of them, but I turned it down just because I wasn't sure if I wanted to do medicine at that point. And so I did engineering for a while and did an engineering internship after freshman year. And I liked it. And then after that, I actually applied for some consulting internships, like strategy consulting.
Okay.
And ended up not getting any of those positions. And so I think at that point I sort of realized I was going down a path that I wasn't really that excited about.
Sure.
And in the back of my head, medicine had always been brewing. And I think simultaneous to me deciding that the sort of engineering consulting path wasn't for me, I realized that medicine was for me. I'd done some shadowing and I had done some medical research as well at Vanderbilt, and really decided that medicine was a great fit. And so I applied to medical school, and throughout medical school wasn't really entirely sure what I wanted to do. I loved clinical care, but I also knew that I wanted to sort of combine medicine with some other sort of interdisciplinary type interest.
Yeah.
And I think over time that for me has developed into media. And so I want to find ways to combine medicine and media, in particular, like probably down the journalism route or video making route. Creating content for the layperson to understand medical concepts more easily would be something that I'd be pretty interested in. So working as an emergency physician, but also working with some sort of news outlet or some sort of production team to produce content for people to understand medicine at their level,
Yeah.
Because not everyone sort of has the background or the resources to sort of dissect complex medical updates or news or research. And so I think it's important to be able to communicate those things to the layperson. So that's kind of where I feel like my career path is headed towards, but obviously, things change very rapidly. And being at Stanford, there's so many resources. So I'm sure that something might come along and my interest may change. I'm sure that happens.
There's a ton of, yeah, it's actually really interesting. I've become more involved in the, media interaction with providing information to patients through, there's a startup actually that I kind of have been working with now for a couple of months.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and we can connect about it too offline, but it's their basic approach is they're like a news aggregator.
Oh, really?
And so
it's
they
like right down my alley. Yeah.
We can connect you in. They need people.
Yeah, sure.
But they basically aggregate news and then have people such as myself analyze it in different fields and just say like which one's good for patients to look at and which one's not.
Oh, really?
And just filter it.
Definitely connect me. I'm really interested.
And they do
Thanks, Kai, for bringing us
articles,
together.
This is the
videos, podcasts. Like they do the whole gamut, and it's like week to week.
This is a Palo Alto based thing, like.
Yeah, or Mountain View actually.
Oh,
yeah,
really?
The guy's formerly at he used to run Google Search, and now he's like interested in
You used to
healthcare.
run Google Search?
Yeah.
How did you
What
get hooked
the
up
fuck?
into this?
He just blasted the Stanford email list, and like people who were interested could. He was looking for
But
editors.
he's not Stanford affiliated.
So he's like, it's a separate company, but they were looking for medically proficient people to kind of act as editors for it. But yeah, it's really cool, and you'd be perfectly suited for it. It's pretty chill work. And they affiliate with health insurers, so they blast beneficiaries every week with kind of like a weekly newsletter of the digest of this week. So it's pretty cool. But it has also inspired me more in doing that, like ways to do more, I guess, because there's a lot of news out there. Yeah, I think just it's been interesting to think about where do patients go to get information about their health and their disease and diseases that they may have or their family members may have. And WebMD has like decent stuff, but there's all kinds of data that people are sorting through. And I think with maybe a more curated approach, we can maybe even create better resources. So that's been on my like mind lately, is just like how we can maybe create a better form of what we're sending to people already.
Technology is like a boon and a sin at the same time. It's and especially just like access to data. It's incredibly helpful and also could be incredibly harmful. I don't think that there's ever been a time in the history of our world in which the average person has so much access to data, and so it brings with it a lot of opportunity and sort of a lot of danger too, because I think people have started to realize that it's very easy to drive clicks and then hence revenue by targeting people's emotion.
Right. Sensationalist, I mean.
Yeah, exactly. And so, with access data comes that sort of danger of putting content out there that drives emotional clicks rather than like actually evidence-based information.
Right.
And so I think it's a responsibility for us as healthcare providers who have the privilege of sort of being able to dissect through the ocean of information to find things that are truly evidence-based and be able to present those
in a digestible, concise format.
Right.
Yeah. It's like medical textbooks are not. They're not the path for a patient.
That's not where
to learn
people are
about their
going.
disease.
Yeah.
And here's the reality. Like, think about this. 40 years ago, the average person, if they had a question about their health, they would go ask their physician, right? Like they didn't have any other way. You can't go on Google and search in 1970 or 1980, whatever. Like you just can't do that. So who do you ask? You ask your physician. You ask your nurse colleague. You ask your friends who are in healthcare.
Right.
You don't go on the internet and search, and you don't go on social media and click on articles that pop up. And so I think misinformation wasn't potentially as big of an issue there because the access information was already so curated.
Right.
So we're really in unprecedented times. Yeah. I mean, it's self-curated and also just like it was just curated by the sort of lack of infrastructure. Yeah, lack of options, like lack of infrastructure to get data otherwise. There's literally no other way besides getting Harrison's or like something by like getting that by yourself or going to your doctor's office and asking a question.
Right. So, how do you guys get information like about new medical stuff? Like that's family related or like non-school related?
Yeah, I mean you read a lot of journals.
Okay.
So I think most of us are probably subscribed to the biggest journals and they send email updates, or you kind of just like are aware through professional circles of the latest data that comes out through the top journals.
Email's a big one. Yeah, I turn to podcasts a lot.
Really?
What
actively. I really like the Curbsiders, which is like a internal medicine kind of based podcast, but they cover a range of topics. There's a whole gamut of, when I think of the information landscape, when you want to learn about a disease, there's what a physician would turn to, like, what myself would do or Pranjal.
Yeah.
But then there's what a patient should probably turn to, and those are not the same. Yeah. Those are probably not the same resources, I would argue.
Yeah.
Very rarely will they be the same.
Overlap.
Just because in medical training you get some familiarity, some baseline knowledge, and you have more in-depth questions that you're going into a new disease or into learning about more. Versus with a patient, it's usually at first starting from a different level, but they gain insights over time that are far greater than what a physician will ever need to deal with. How to live with a disease. And so that's very rarely the context of a physician, learning about the disease is, what it's like to actively live with it.
Right.
So they're just two different information sources. But I'd say, there's a lot of good podcasts out there. There's a growing number of websites that are doing pretty good jobs of, aggregating resources and studies, but it's hard.
We're living in a time where this is so important given the pandemic. I mean, the fact that wearing a mask has become politicized, I think, is just a very, very explicit example of the power of misinformation. So I think we're living in a time where we're seeing examples of this every day. So
I think it does kind of tie in. One of the reasons that drove me towards medicine was to kind of better understand the field of medicine, which is kind of shrouded in mystery and it's difficult words and complex myriad hospital campuses that you can't really navigate through. I came into the path of wanting to be an engineer. Actually, to your point earlier, I grew up in Houston, right next to Johnson Space Center. So I also grew up
what?
wanting to be an astronaut.
Were you in
Oh
Clear
my
Lake?
goodness.
Yeah, I was in Clear Lake. My
Did you
dad
go to
worked at
Clear Lake High
NASA.
School?
Uh-huh.
You went to Clear Lake High School?
Yeah.
So that's so funny. My significant other, maybe you know her, Pooja Yesantara.
You know Pooja? Yeah, I know Pooja.
What the
You
heck?
Or I
Pooja?
know her. Yeah, I know her. Her younger
Leica?
sister? Yeah.
You graduated Leica probably, right? No, you were.
She was like a year younger or something. No
That's-
way. You're engaged or married?
Yes. So yeah.
What?
No way. Yeah. She was like a year above me. She was like always the super child in high school.
Yeah.
Like the super
Yeah, we
student
met in
high
med school.
Oh, okay.
And then
What the
yeah,
heck?
we met in med school.
What a
and we've been
small
dating ever
world.
since, Yeah.
That's actually wild.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you like where in Houston you were from. I didn't realize it would be Clear Lake, like actually
Yeah.
Clear Lake High School. That's amazing.
But yeah, wow, small world.
Yeah.
But yeah, I came into the path. I was interested in engineering and innovation, and there's a couple different paths. I always thought I might do like a PhD or something because I was more interested in the technology and science world. But then I got interested in entrepreneurship and thought maybe I should go into industry. But ultimately, I settled on medicine because I was always interested in the kind of healthcare tie-in. And I felt like, you can go down different pathways in tech or in PhD land and not always end up in healthcare. You can end up in different paths.
Yeah.
And I felt also the biggest value add, at least to my education and what I felt like I needed to understand better at that point in my life was the medical world. So
At that point, being in high school or college?
this was in college. So this would probably be my junior year of college. And I think that was around the time I'd still been kind of undecided about whether to do med school, but on that path, and then I settled on it.
I'll make sure to give it permission to upload your likeness. Okay. Sorry.
No problem.
So you decided in college you wanted to pursue medicine?
Yeah.
Okay. What? And did you just explain that, or is there more layers to that discovery?
Let's see. I think for a while, I'd set out in college, unfortunately being pre-medical or going into med school is a rigorous path with lots of courses and training and stuff. So it's something, if you're considering, I'd say keep the doors open as long as you can. So take the required curriculum and try to do well in your...
A good topic is how to decide if medicine is right for you. I have a lot of feelings about this.
Ooh.
So
Perfect time to.
yeah. It's not. I think one of the issues I've always found is a lot of people that I ran into in college who were interested in medicine always kind of turned me off with their passion or their drive.
Yeah.
Because it was like you had to walk in day one to general chemistry or something and know you were going to become a doctor.
Yeah.
And I was not of that ilk. I was vehemently, trying to explore during my college years and see what would be good. But I knew medicine was cool, and it's very cool, I'll tell you later, but I didn't know if that was the right path for me. And so I think I was always kind of turned off initially, but you got to keep the doors open. So, take the classes that will allow you to go down that path if you are interested, and, try to keep your grades up and try to keep your opportunities open to it. Because if you don't, and you don't take the curriculum that you need to, or it can be hard to get back on the path. There are options, certainly,
Post-bacs.
but you can do a post-bac program, you can do all kinds of things, but I think it's easier keeping an open mind up front and then diverting away from medicine if you don't want to, which is a fine thing to do.
I'm glad you brought that up. I felt very similarly. This concept of knowing that medicine is your dream and is your passion, I think, is an artificial barrier that is placed on people and prevents a lot of people from pursuing medicine. I think it's really something that shouldn't be stressed as much to pre-meds. It's a classic thing of everyone says, medicine's a long path. You have to like live, breathe, die medicine, and you have to be super passionate about it. And I'm going to be very honest with you. Like, I've been successful in the medical realm, and I never had that passion. I mean, I developed that passion in medical school, actually. And I think that's what happens to most people. The genuine passion, I think, comes when you're exposed to medicine. I think very few people truly have this like authentic understanding of what it truly means to be excited about medicine, just because it's impossible to be exposed as a non-medical person. I mean, obviously there's some cases where some people have different careers and then decide on medicine and this and that, and I think in those cases it makes sense. But for the average pre-medical student that's coming from high school and just pursuing a biology degree in college, like there's no way that they have enough exposure into medicine to really be able to truly say like I have a passion, for being a doctor. Yeah. Also, the other part is that even if you enter medical school and realize that clinical medicine is not for you, there's a million different opportunities that you can pursue just by having an MD. You can do consulting work, you can do research, you can do public policy, you can do
public health, epidemiology. Those are all big ticket items.
Consulting. You can also pursue specialties that have less sort of bedside interactions.
Yeah.
There's dozens of opportunities, to use your degree, and I think it's kind of counterproductive to tell pre-meds like you have to know 100% that you want to be a doctor in order to apply to medical school.
Yeah, your concept of a doctor, at least my concept, and I would say I had at least seen the medical world a little bit before college even. But your concept is just so skewed. I mean, most people, their interaction with a doctor is usually like a family care practitioner, someone in the community, maybe some emergency room doctors. Rarely all the other the additional doctors like the anesthesiologist, radiologist, pathologist that fill the hospital doing things that you probably don't even realize. There's so many paths once you're in medicine. And to think that like you need to run into save people's lives like when you're a freshman in college,
it's like
unfathomable to me still.
So like you brought up, like it's like almost a part of actually being in medicine and exploring and seeing all the different like options you have after is sort of the reason why people might not be sure they want to go into medicine, because they have this one idea of their family doctor or whatever going into college or something, and they're like, oh, I definitely don't want to do that. So then they're like turned away from medicine as a whole field.
I think that's a minority. I think most people see that role model and say, I want to do that, but the world is telling me that medicine is really hard and a really arduous path, and I'm not entirely 100% sure that I want to go down that path, because I'm not entirely 100% sure that I love medicine to death.
Right.
And so then it's probably not right for me, because that person over there, who's an amazing pre-med, probably loves medicine more than I do, and I don't love his medicine as much as he does, so I'm not going to do it.
Right.
That was definitely some fears that I had. I'm like over here about to matriculate to medical school, and I'm on the phone with some of my mentors being like, am I doing the right thing? I mean, I enjoy medicine. I think this would be a fine career path, but I'm not over there like Joe Bob who's wanted to be a cardiac surgeon since day one. I mean, that's not me.
Yeah. He's crushing all of his I remember struggling through some pre-medical courses or things like that, and Vanderbilt's a tough place and they teach you well, but it's also hard. And I remember struggling through biochemistry at one point and failing an exam and being like, if I can't get through biochem, how am I going to go to med school? That's a huge part of medicine. And I was able to right the ship and do well after it, but I think it's it's hard to sit there and see oh, these other people are about to go to med school and they're getting A's on all these exams, and I'm sitting here this is a struggle for me. But I think it's okay. You'll have struggles, and you'll also, I don't think everyone's path to medicine is the same as each other. People come at it from very different viewpoints. You take different approaches to your medicine. I mean, to the way you practice, how you learn.
The other it's related to that, but something that really made me question whether medicine was the right path for me was the fact that a lot of pre-meds were pursuing all of these clinically related extracurriculars, and I wasn't doing much of it at all, just because I wasn't really interested in using my time in college to,
Shadow 400 hours.
shadow 400 hours, go
That's
volunteer
ridiculous.
400 hours. Like, I thought, man, like if I would rather use my time doing other things, then is medicine right for me? And I think that's also a pretty dangerous concept. You, of course, have to have some sort of clinical exposure for your own decision-making process.
Sure.
Like, you have to get enough exposure to decide whether medicine's right for you. And I had achieved that level of exposure. I did enough clinical, activities to know that medicine was a good field for me. But beyond that, I felt like I wanted to use my time in other ways, like, doing cultural showcases or, volunteering in non-clinical realms. But that gave me a lot of sense of doubt. This person over there is the president of the pre-med society, and they're doing this. They're running the volunteering thing at the hospital, and they're doing this, scribing. They're like a scribe, and they're an EMT, and this and that.
Yeah,
and
the model pre-med.
the model pre-med.
Yeah, I think you check a lot of the boxes, or you add hours and hours of shadowing under all these dozens of specialties. Which, I mean, if that's what you ultimately find you need to do
that's
to make
great.
a decision, do it.
Yeah.
But I fully agree with there are certain things that once you've reached the decision-making capacity, you don't have to keep pursuing. For me, that was I loved research. I loved doing research and building things and testing them out. And, I continued to do that in almost all my free time, as opposed to tons and tons of clinical hours. But there are many of my classmates whose research would be the lowest of they'd be like, I hate research. And, research is kind of a part of medicine, so you got to do a little bit. But once you check that box, you don't need to go back to it, and you can go do the other things. For me, it was the opposite. But I mean, it's everyone should carve their own kind of path, and I think don't hold yourself to someone else's standard. Try and stay true to what you value. That'll be communicated well during your application as well as during everything in medicine that comes after.
Sorry, that just stopped recording, so I just saw that.
Okay,
Let's get audio.
Yeah.
Cool.
Let's see. Going off that, talked a little bit about, getting into medicine, deciding that it's right for you.
Can you talk more about your pre-med undergrad experience as a whole? Obviously, Kevin mentioned the tough classes, and goes without saying there's gonna be a lot of studying. And I mean, I would say it's definitely. Would you guys consider it a hard path to medicine?
And I think we both took engineering routes to get to medicine,
even harder
which
routes.
I think is a difficult route. I pursued it because I didn't know if I really wanted to be an engineer when I started, but ultimately I kind of have always been one and enjoy just tinkering and building and the tools that it gave me. But I don't think that you need to go down all the designated routes. You don't need to be a biology major to go into medicine. Right. You don't need to be a chemistry major. Some will confer advantages, in the courses that you take and you're learning later on. But I would try and find what's right for you. But certainly, I have classmates who majored in Russian studies and anthropology, which is none of those classes correlated with a medical school curriculum, so they had to add all of that on top, which is impressive, and they did it. But if you want to do that, just understand it's medicine will have to fit in some other way. There's just certain barriers you have to meet to be able to successfully apply.
Right.
Yeah, I would say that had I done a biology major, I think my path probably would have personally been tougher because chemical engineering somehow fit into the way my brain operated.
Gotcha.
And I found it to
must be nice.
I found it to I just different people. I think different people have different sort of strengths and and weaknesses. And one of my big weaknesses that I openly admit is that I'm just really bad at memorization. I just have
Same.
I have a really tough time memorizing
Which is
things.
tough in medicine.
That's
And
why I
I-
take bio.
It's a
It is
memorization
tough.
style
Yeah, it's a
field.
memorization heavy field, at least in the first 2 years of medical school.
Yeah.
And I struggled more so in my biology classes than my chemical engineering classes.
Damn.
My chemical engineering GPA was higher than my overall GPA because the classes that brought my GPA down were the biology related
That's
courses.
so funny.
And it's like I just it's just the reality that had I done a biochemistry major, biology major, I would have had a tougher time. So you have to find a major that is the right fit, like
Sure.
Kevin said. And I say that with a lot of hesitation because I don't like to add this artificial pressure that pre-meds already have to find the right fit for every single thing they do. Like they just hear the song, and like, is medicine the right fit for
All
me? Like,
students, yeah.
is now I have to figure out, oh man, is this major the right fit for me? Like,
Yeah.
I would just say don't think too much about anything. Don't.
The right fit is always a big question.
Yeah,
in
Yeah.
everyone's
and it
life.
tends to you tend to
100%.
find the right fit for you on the path
Naturally.
of least resistance.
Yeah, definitely.
You try out 10 different things,
Yeah.
and the path of least resistance tends to be the path that's probably the right fit for you.
That's a good point.
Or probably I would say a combination of the path of least resistance combined with your own
Ambition.
natural success in that path.
Oh, okay.
Because
I
the
would
path
agree
of
with
least
that.
resistance for anyone is to just sit at home and do nothing. But if
All
you're
right, that's where I'm going.
no, I mean if you combine that with
Relative accomplishment.
relative accomplishment, then you'll start to realize like, hey, this might be the right fit for me. So I found that with chemical engineering.
Damn.
And I was pretty lucky in that regard that it was the path of least resistance and
Yeah, it's a nice path.
so
I fully agree of that. I've always kind of lived and found success by playing to my strengths, essentially, and trying to take that path of, I'm not certain at the outset that this is right for me, but if things are going well and I'm doing well, then I'm, more inclined to enjoy that work and build those strengths. And then as part of the fit, there's been a lot of discussion in my mind around this. There's a class at Stanford that's kind of famous called Designing Your Life. So I took that class recently, and they teach a lot of the life design skills to try and better understand, what
Cool.
should you do? What are you doing with your life, and what
So-
kind of meaning are you deriving from it?
Is that undergrad class? Sorry.
This one was for grad students,
Okay.
but they offer it for undergrads, grad students, elsewhere. You can check it out on they have a website called Design Your Life, and there's even a book. Just
damn.
with helpful, I think it's helpful to know that everyone's thinking about this a lot, or at least at some point, and then they kind of put it aside. But one of the things that they described that was really helpful for me, that's an insight that I've taken away is, finding the right fit. It's a mantra that we hear, but not everyone will find it. Sometimes the better way to think about it is that you're going to grow into the right fit and develop.
I like that.
And
That is nice.
it's a lot more empowering, I think, to think you're not just gonna
Keep
walk
searching.
into the best job for
Yeah.
you. You might actually walk in and that job not work out all that well, but eventually 6 months down the road, 8 months down the road, it's gonna fit like a glove. It's gonna be great for you, and you may
Right,
just not see that right now.
I like that a lot. I think
Same.
fit is like relationships. You have to put
Mhm.
in work in order for them to be successful.
Yeah.
Nothing in life, rare things in life come, without work. And I think
Sure.
fit is very much like that.
Yeah.
You may be lucky and walk into a space in which you find things easier than others, which means that which you may initially be inclined to think like, hey, this is the right fit for me.
Right.
But you have to continuously put in work to make your space the right fit for you.
Yeah.
That means personal work and also work on your environment as well. You
What's that
can
mean?
you can change your environment to make it a better fit for you.
Yeah.
Are you talking about associations with people, or what do you?
Yeah, sure. Associations with people. You can work within your space in your professional career to make your role a better fit for yourself
Sure.
by changing aspects of your company or job or whatever your work is to make it a better fit for your aspirations.
And how you even approach that work day to day. I think
Yeah.
a lot of the time we get bogged down by things we're doing. and we don't always know why, and it feels like there are roadblocks, and maybe coming at them from just different angles, saying, hey, every phone call, conference meeting I'm going to take it while I'm walking outside or something. Or, now with COVID and work from home, like our environment is so much more flexible than it's ever been.
Yeah.
You don't have to report to a specific site all the time. Even medicine, you've got to go see the patients where they're at, obviously. But even then, there's a lot of medicine that's changing too, I'm seeing around the dynamics of how we're working. And so I think, just understanding you can change the way you're approaching something is immensely empowering. It can revive parts of your day that are normally maybe wasted. Or it can enable you to take on tasks that you normally wouldn't be able to.
This is a segue to that, but I think an important thing to talk about, if any pre-meds are listening to this, or if anyone is listening to this that's thinking about any sort of application to grad school, whatever, I think this is relevant to any sort of application that you sort of put in. I think it's always a good thing to find ways to make your hobbies more than just hobbies.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
100% agree.
what I mean by this is I often tell pre-meds when they're trying to fill out their application, like, okay, say there's this person X who does the classic volunteering and shadowing, whatever, this and that, and they may not do like much else, but they really love to cook, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like they just love to cook. So then I tell them, like, okay, well, are there ways in which you can make your hobby of cooking into something more than a hobby? Can you start teaching classes for middle schoolers to learn basic culinary skills? Can you go work at your local YMCA and host like cooking classes? Can you go to a retirement home and host a feast like once a year or something?
Right.
Can you put your recipes online and start a cooking channel? Right? There's a million opportunities to make your hobby more than your hobbies and still have fun with it.
I really like that idea. Well, I like both. Everything's been awesome. Like the idea that you're growing into your fit, or not even, I don't know if fit's the right word if you're growing into it, right? Because then it's more like
I think it still is, that's how. But it's a challenge, right, to think of it that way, because we're so used to just saying, "Oh, you just fall into fit," But I think you can find it or develop it.
And then I really like the idea of finding ways to expand your hobbies and stuff you naturally like doing. And I think there's so many benefits to this. Like one of them, especially for pre-med students, obviously, is that's more like resume building or application building, right? You're showing more of a narrative of how this part of your life that you care about can be extended in other options. Now you're like kind of serving that to the broader community.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a million ways.
Yeah.
It's truly unlimited.
With technology nowadays, you can reach, just talking about it, you can reach hundreds, if not thousands of people.
Yeah, you can put
immediately.
There's this dude who cooks on TikTok, and he has like millions of followers.
Which
You've probably seen it. It's like the really charismatic guy who's like
who like yells and cooks giant things.
No. I've seen that guy too. That one's also really.
There's like a guy who yells in Chinese and just like
bats of stuff.
Yeah, cooks like an entire bison or something.
I love
and you're
that.
like, what?
So cool.
I love that. Yeah. There's this other guy. He's just like he cooks. He's like this young dude who's just like entering college this year or something. But he's a really talented cook, and he just puts his recipes on TikTok.
Oh, okay.
And narrates them and just gets millions of followers. And I'm sure that's opened a world of opportunities for him.
Oh, I bet.
So
there are all these platforms, to explore and innovate on. And just, I fully agree with putting your hobbies. I've always put my kind of like hobbies and interests first and foremost, almost, because fortunately those have aligned well with a medical career. I like to build medical devices and things and think about them, as well as do that kind of academic work. So that helps me naturally. But I echo the hobby thing, especially because I remember when I was interviewing for med school, I walked in on an interview. I walked into an interview, and the director of admissions, was greeting me, and he shook my hand, and he said, "You're the one who likes barbecue." And this was in
Barbecue?
Texas. This was in Austin, of course. But I shook his hand. I said, "Yeah, of course." And I remember on my MCAT or on the application system for med school, one of my hobbies they're just interests. I think you can put anything in that field. But I had done some barbecuing events for my fraternity, as well as the charity organization that we benefit. So I just put that down that I'd smoke a couple 100 pounds of pork every year, and we'd sell it, and it'd go very well.
Yeah.
And that was a huge conversation pointer, because the director of admissions knew my name and knew who I was, just as the guy who does barbecue.
That's so funny.
And that's irrespective of all the other things on my application. There's pages and pages, but that's the one thing he really
Fixated.
focused in on. And I loved it too. It was a great interview, and I almost went to that school just because I felt like a person there, because they valued that other side of me that isn't just
Unlike Stanford,
medical.
Right?
That's so important. Again, to people that are listening to this, that are trying to apply to medical school, or maybe that are trying to design their college experience, obviously you have to have your fundamentals down. You have to have good grades. You have to have good test scores.
Yeah.
Beyond that, though, it's really kind of up to you how you design your college experience. And time again, I found that the most successful people are the ones that have their fundamentals down, but then do really interesting things that they just love, and work hard at those things.
Yeah.
That's what makes you stand out. Same thing happened to me at Yale in my interview there for med school. It was at Columbia. The director of admissions was like, "Oh, you're the YouTube guy, and you like making YouTube videos." And that was something that I put on my AMCAS application.
And it's always kind of like a throwaway.
Yeah.
It's not your centerpiece, right? You're not sitting down going, "This is important." But
Same thing for residency applications. I was telling these guys earlier, I have a TikTok that I make just medical school comedy posts on.
Sure.
And I brought that up on many residency interviews, and people loved it.
It shows you're a person who's interesting, which is honestly, what we all like. I like to say you need to try to think of things that'll help you pass the airport test. If you're going to be in the airport lounge for 2 hours with this person and talking to them, what can you do in your life that'll sustain a conversation, that'll make it interesting? That's for you, and ideally the people in your life too, if you can stomach a couple hours with them. I remember I even had that a couple of times. Fortunately, I was with some aspiring med students who were very interesting, and we had great conversations. So it pays to do interesting things, whatever they are and whatever you want them to be.
Yeah, I think that's what I really like about the idea of pursuing your hobby, and then also, I think you kind of touched on it, but the idea of a very flexible approach to education. Because I think definitely in high school we have these stories or narratives in our mind that are the model ones for each of our pre-law, pre-med, pre-scientist, pre-astronaut even. And those don't really correlate to how actual life works. You don't have some idea, especially when you're that young, and then you're okay, I just need to do these steps, and then this will happen, and then I will be happy. Mm-hmm. There's so many decision points along the way, and different pathways you can go, even towards a singular goal. Mm-hmm. That just that sort of freedom of flexibility. A lot of people don't realize that coming straight out of high school, or even coming out of college, some people still don't really see.
And I think I feel like both Pranjal and I have a lot of probably self-assurance, the ability to know, maybe the ability to know that what we're doing is okay, and we're going to be able to make things work. But I know it's not always the case for everyone to have that kind of confidence or ability to know that what path you're on is a good one.
It's a weird path,
Yeah, but I think, the more I've reflected and looked back, the more I think just any anything's going to work out well for you. If you do decide you want to go into medicine, there's so many ways to get into it. And I think there's so many ways to do other medical related things too, that aren't becoming a doctor. I think that's also a big thing to consider, is not only the other allied health professions. You can be a PA, a nurse practitioner, nursing school, other elements that are clinically involved. But then there's so many ways to be in kind of the healthcare space and doing cool things that don't necessitate you being an MD. My girlfriend right now works in health policy at like kind of the Medicare level. And she came from like a statistics background and went into that. And so she works intimately with healthcare and healthcare data, but at a level that's, 2 levels above my clinical worldview, but still involved in it. And I think you can do that. You can get into the space from different ways and still play a big role. Because I do think healthcare is really a big draw to people, especially now with the emphasis around COVID and, understanding health and how it impacts society. And I think, even more so now, engineers, data scientists, social sciences, all of that is playing a bigger role in how we should improve the health of society. And I think you can come at healthcare from many different avenues and have a real positive impact.
And same with other industries for sure. For all our non-pre-med listeners or less interested in, the medical field. But I definitely found, I guess I always knew that tech was, somewhere in my brain I knew that tech was the right path for me from a young age, also being like a zillennial, like you're just growing up with the rapid expansion and innovation around technology. So it's just something that always like drew me to it. But I really didn't know I was going to do it until probably like junior, senior year of college, is when I switched out from chemical engineering and into engineering science. And then found CS also. But like, there's just, even if you want to go in tech, you don't have to go the CS route. You could like work on the finance or HR side of tech. Like, I think there's a lot of different, like, so there's like the functional role fit. So like doctor, software engineer, whatever. And then there's also sort of like the industry, like, environment, I guess, of that functional role. So for you guys, it'd be like medicine, or your specific type of medicine you're trying to get into. And for me, it's obviously just like tech. But I think there's like a lot of different fits to look at and to try to grow into. And like one might definitely be more dominant. So like I think, actually mine are pretty equal right now. I was thinking between tech and like software engineering, which I guess are pretty intimately related, but like
fairly.
I like the problem solving aspect of software engineering a lot, and that like stems from early childhood too. But then like the applicability and easily duplicability, if that's a word, of tech is what really draws me to the industry as a whole. Because I could be like a software engineer for like a more social entrepreneurship startup or something less tech focused.
It's pretty dynamic. You can go across different companies and different roles. Yeah.
But I think that using my problem solving fit with my tech fit, which works really well in my current role, is something that like was a really strong gravitational pull towards it. And other people might have just like really they wanted to like solve problems or like build something like engineers would, or maybe they have a really strong interest in a field like health or tech or whatever other industry. And this goes really well with like the idea of the path of least resistance. Like follow what you like doing and what you are successful at doing, and you really can't go wrong. Like explore that, like, and then I guess that's the other thing.
You
like
have to combine that with a commitment to work hard. I think your concept of self-assurance is a really good way to reflect on the mindset that I've caught myself having. Do what you want to do, but if you know for a fact that you are going to be committed to working hard, exploring opportunities, and taking advantage of the situations that you're put in, then you should have the self-assurance that everything will work out. If you do whatever you want without a commitment to work hard, then you should not have that self-assurance. But I think we all know, like, we're going to work hard doing what we love, and then 100% will work out.
Yeah.
Work hard and take advantage of things that are given to you. That's
Yeah.
huge too. Take advantage of things that are given to you for sure.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I heard a good comment from someone I recently met. He's like a 5th or 6th year PhD wrapping up, but he would always say, believe in serendipity, like it always has helped you. And it's so true.
Take
You
advantage
never
of
know
something,
what
yeah.
you never know what
100%.
opportunities will come your way. And I think
100%.
maybe tying it back to that pre-med mindset is, that mindset may obscure or block out opportunities that are coming your way because maybe they don't perfectly align with, the clinical opportunities you think you need, or the volunteer, or the, research that you need to do. But in reality, those other things that come out and present themselves as good opportunities, those are what you really should be taking advantage of. And don't let a pathway block you from them.
I've definitely seen, and I'm sure you guys have examples too of like serendipity in my own life. 100%. Like it's actually crazy how much like I'm thinking back on, like I could be in a wildly
Serendipity,
different
we
place.
just
We talked about this startup thing.
Yeah.
came together and we've got all these interests, and his
It's
partner
insane.
is, a girl who went to my high school.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah, that's how things happen all the time.
Yeah.
We could have both easily said, no, we don't have time. We're not going to do this thing. We're not going to do this podcast. But we're like, yeah, we'll do it.
Yeah.
Take
and
time out and do
come
it.
here
And you, it's always 99%. It's always a positive outcome.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's the thing I like a lot, and like touch it with serendipity. But if you're more into like the spiritual stuff, it's like people have different energies and different like wavelengths, and then some people are on like wavelengths that resonate well with each other.
Yeah.
So like that's sort of like where chemistry, they would say, comes from, or just like I think, and this is probably, let's not go down this path because it's kind of diverting from the main things that we've been talking about. But just like the idea of energy and like serendipity, and that like things, if you go where vibes is a bad word, but like where you really like deeply resonate with it, and it's something that is like you may not be able to explain it, but you're like, I feel like this is the right decision. And the more you can trust those feelings and listen into that, I think the better decisions you're going to make for yourself, and like you'll be going down a path that's naturally like your best fit and the least resistance, and you'll be willing to work hard because you have some sort of like really deep like limbic system level resonance with whatever you're pursuing. Sorry if that was a little tangent.
No,
That's good.
it's all good.
Yeah.
Well, should we wrap it up? I'm going to have to roll out soon.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, no problem. Obviously doctors have other stuff in their life besides podcasts, apparently.
Should we say
But
our
yeah.
closing remarks?
Yeah, I usually have a question, but you guys can definitely say some closing remarks while I think of like a last question.
My
Oh, yeah.
closing remarks is I've always lived by this motto that I got from Lemony Snicket's A Series of Unfortunate Events.
oh, I love
In the
this.
penultimate peril, there's a quote from the dude in the submarine, I forgot his name, who says, "He who hesitates is lost." Like, I don't know if you guys remember.
what?
He who hesitates is lost.
Oh, okay.
If you
Mm.
guys remember reading that book, that was his main saying.
Oh, you
He
said
al-
it multiple times.
Yeah, he said it multiple times. That was his mantra. He who hesitates is lost. And I've always lived by that phenomena. I think it summarizes everything we've talked about. If you are even remotely interested in a field and an opportunity comes your way, then if you hesitate, you'll lose.
Yeah.
And I think I can pinpoint exact decisions for each. I can trace back. Let me rephrase this. For every major success I've had in my life, I can pinpoint exact decision points in which I chose not to hesitate, and then it paid off drastically.
Yeah.
Wow. I'll give one example to
Sure.
make it more concrete. When I was a sophomore at Vanderbilt, I was at the end of sophomore year. I was elected as president of the South Asian Cultural Exchange, and there was a student government campaign happening at the time, and because I was sort of newly in this role and I had a couple connections, one of the campaign members of one of the candidates approached me and said, "Hey, do you want to, participate in the campaign, and endorse this candidate, whatever, this and that?" And I knew the candidate, I supported his views,
Nice.
and I was like, you know what, like this is a weird space. I've never really gotten involved in, like student government or this and that, but I'm just going to do it. I'm not going to hesitate. I'm just going to jump in and take advantage of this opportunity.
Yeah.
So I became part of that campaign team, and that single decision point, I think, blossomed into hundreds of opportunities for the rest of my 2 years at Vanderbilt because of the connections I made, because of the networking I did, because of the work I did, because of the trust I embedded in people. That gave me opportunities to have higher roles in student government, to make connections, to create collaborations between student organizations, to just be better known on campus.
Sure.
That eventually just started to snowball opportunities to the point in which I felt like I'd created a strong enough portfolio to be accepted to a school like Johns Hopkins for medicine. So those types of decisions are you're probably experiencing those types of decision points every single day, and you never know what it's going to blossom into. So, yeah, he who hesitates is lost.
Damn.
Nice. I had a quote that I turn to every now and then. It's from the book The Right Stuff, about the development of the astronauts who went on the Apollo missions. So I'll bring it all the way back. The quote is, "Dare to discover the unknown," which I really like, because I like the word dare as like a element of your life, because I think you have to be a little bit daring in both willing to take on risk is really what I think daring someone to do embodies.
Yeah.
I think you have to take a little bit of risk and explore areas that you're not comfortable with.
Yeah.
But be okay with feeling the certitude that this is the right thing to do. And I think that's been a real good embodiment of a lot of the work that I've done throughout my career, is just taking on things that I wasn't really sure of where they would turn, and kind of having that self-assurance and daring attitude to try and just turn it into something.
Yeah. Damn, that was
I like that.
And that brought up a question, which I guess will be our final question for the podcast. So, in that spirit of daring, and in the same line of thought as like path of least resistance, and also path that you're like relatively accomplished in, so what do you recommend in like finding that balance if like there's something that you really want to do and you want to work and you do work hard for it, but it just isn't working out? So either it's not working out because of like you're just not getting the recognition that you want or like need or whatever, or just like it's not working out in the fact that like any other ways it couldn't work out, right?
Yeah.
Does
I
that
have
make
two
sense?
responses to that. One is commit yourself to the self-assurance that we already talked about.
Okay.
Because that will alleviate a lot of the anxiety of not achieving success as fast as you want to achieve it. I think that's an important thing to think about. Like, it's not that you're not achieving success; it's that you're not achieving success as fast as you think it should come.
Sure.
Success will come with the self-assurance that you have, but sometimes it will take a lot longer than you expect, and you may misinterpret that as not being successful.
That's great.
The second thing I would say is you need to continuously expose yourself to more and more opportunities within whatever you're pursuing, because one of them will snowball into achieving success faster.
Yep.
So if you're doing the same thing over and over again and you're not being successful, then open up your network a little bit more and try a little bit, cast a wider net in terms of who you're interacting with, the avenues you're pursuing, and see if any of those things hit and sort of cause an avalanche towards achieving success faster. That's what I would say.
Awesome.
Yeah, I really like the idea of the success over time ideal.
Graph.
It's like a derivative of success and time. And are you meeting the point that you're happy with?
Yeah.
I think exactly. That's my engineering way I want to think about it. I do think I'm trying to think back to moments where maybe I've not felt like I was achieving enough or having enough success. And I do think they come. No, they come pretty regularly. That's the thing, is I think they come and then they go, and then they come and they go.
Huh.
And I wonder if that idea of it being over time is what's really the thing that's impacting that belief, is during this time am I not achieving enough? But maybe it's just because it's only been a month or 2 months,
Too
and
narrow
maybe
of
I
a
need to
scope
look
of
at
domain.
6 months. Yeah,
Or a year. Yeah.
exactly.
And actually, real quick, so you brought up the success over time line, right? So where do you guys think you are, and what's your like shape of your graph so far, and where do you think it will go?
Ooh, yeah.
I think. Oh, go ahead.
I always hope that my biggest successes are to come.
Sure.
I don't want to be like look back fondly at those memories and be like, oh, those were the days.
Yeah,
I always want to be like,
Yeah.
what am I working
Excited.
towards?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that's always cool to me.
Yeah.
It's one thing that inspired me to go into medicine too, is it's always a continued development.
Sure.
And you get that kind of a cool, me 5 years from now will be better 5 years later, and
Right.
5 years after that. Like it has that built into it.
Yeah.
I think my path, I'm, seeing some pretty good success recently in different domains, but I still feel like I have so much yet to do.
Yeah.
So I want to have a big delta in the next 4 to 5 years and see a lot more success than I've already had. It's not that I'm unsatisfied. It's just
Right.
I think I could do a lot more. And fortunately, that'll hopefully result in helping a lot of other people too, which is ultimately my goal.
Yeah, I think I had a lot of early success in high school and college, and then I stagnated in the first few years of medical school.
Really?
And I feel like I'm just now achieving a little bit more of an upslope starting residency. I'm really committed to. I'm trying to heed my own advice of going back to the fundamentals, exposing myself to more and more opportunities like I used to in college, and then just paying attention to the timeline. I think in medical school was tough, and you have to focus a lot of your time on getting the fundamentals of medicine down. But the other thing I was going to bring up is like, you don't want to be that guy that's like, everyone says, oh, that guy peaked in high school,
Right.
that guy peaked in college, that guy peaked in med school. Like, you don't want to be that guy. You want to be the person that's still whose peak is still to come.
Right.
Yeah, always.
So that's like my biggest motivation in life, is like, I don't want to be that guy that's like, oh, they my peak was in the past.
Well, yeah, I definitely think both of your guys' peaks is yet to come. Definitely can't wait to see it. Did you want to shout out your TikTok before we?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
The Instagram handle is at the TikTok Doc.
Okay.
So
Great name.
TheTiktokDoc.
Whoa. Okay.
And then the actual handle on the TikTok app is at TikTokDocMD.
Gotcha.
Maybe you can throw it in like the description or something.
Yeah, definitely. I'll definitely link it up. Do you have anything you want? Do you want to shout out a startup or whatever? I don't know what you want to shout out.
I don't have anything great to shout out, unfortunately.
That's all good.
But I've enjoyed this discussion. It's been a lot of fun. I will shout out TikTok Doc MD though. Some pretty good videos in the short few seconds I've been watching them.
That's TikTok Time Link.
Yeah.
All
Thanks
right.
for bringing us together, Kai.
Yeah, of course, no problem.
Sure.
Anytime. If you guys ever want to come back on the podcast.